Afternoon. Well, we're certainly anxious to get back out on the field after last week's loss, but we've got some work to do against a very good Louisville team, one that we're quite familiar with. I know certainly getting a chance to watch them a little bit this week. Outstanding personnel on defense, very athletic. And then offensively, Coach Petrino does a great job offensively, play calling, mixing things up, good balance offensively, defensively. Dyer's an outstanding back, but they've got depth. Radcliffe, Brown, Brown was a big back for him over the last few years. Devontae Parker is an outstanding, one of the best wide receivers in the country. They'll obviously miss their starting quarterback, but Bonifant is an outstanding quarterback, a young quarterback, but athletic, can throw the football. So great challenge for our defense there. Again, and we'll have to find ways to move the football against an extremely athletic Louisville defense. Malden, Burgess, inside. Very physical front. Again, I think that there's probably 4 or 5 guys there that are as good as guys that we've gone against. And it looks like they're going to get some guys back, too. So going to be a great challenge. I think really it's about how we play. I think it's pretty obvious that we've got to make some plays defensively. Slow some people down, and take care of the football. Those are the 2 things. And then our kicking game's got to get back to where it was. I still think we got one of the best kickers in the country. Had an off day on Saturday, but I expect him to bounce back. And, if we get those 3 areas cleaned up, we can beat anybody. So I know that's the way our kids feel. That's the way I feel. We get a chance to prove that again on Senior Day, which is an important milestone for 3 fifth-year seniors in particular, because they're the 3 guys that came in with me 5 years ago, and we certainly want to send them out as winners. So with that, open it up to questions.
Brian, update on Sheldon Day and Daniel Cage.
Sheldon Day has a MCL sprain, so he will not play this week. Daniel Cage also has a sprained knee, and he will not be available. Those are the 2 guys. They'll both be out.
Any chance you'd get Sheldon back for either USC or for a bowl game?
Yes, we'll get Sheldon back. Cage will get back next week, most likely.
And then Everett, how's he feeling? Sometimes those AC things are a little tricky.
We'll know today. I mean, he got treatment the last couple of days, and we'll see today in practice. The reports are that through treatment that he had no ill effects today and felt good and full range of motion, and we expect him to practice fully.
Where do you go with, you mentioned Kyle had an off day. Where do you go with that whole operation? Are you back to Hunter Smith? Do you stay with Malik?
No, I think we just had one situation there. I think all the other ones went smoothly. I just think we had, it's one of those things where, might have got in Kyle's head a little bit, and the tough part about it is when he does all the jobs, it starts to affect everything. I think he learned a great lesson, that, you can't let that affect you. You got to move on and not let it affect you. I think it's going to be a great thing for him to build on. And I had a great talk with him. I think he's going to do just fine this week. So we'll keep the battery as it is.
With Malik?
Yes,
yeah.
Correct.
Is that difficult on a week like this where if Everett's shoulder again gets cranky towards the end of the week, you're giving Malik a lot of reps and you're also trying to get him mixed in with the
it really wouldn't affect. I mean, he does it pre-practice. He does it post-practice. So, he gets plenty of work there, so it won't affect his preparation.
a couple of kids that are listed technically as seniors, and we're not sure what their future is. Maybe you can illuminate for us. Grace and Houndshell, do they still have football ahead of them here, do you think, or is there a chance that they would have to take medical hardships?
Yeah, it's really too early to tell. They both are taking it day to day as we are on all of these guys. And again, you know our situation here. Those fifth years are decided by our faculty board. So for me to kind of make any assertions as to whether they're back for a fifth year, that's why we bring them all out. It's a little, at times, it's kind of just the way we do it here at Notre Dame. If I could make all those decisions right now, sometimes it's a little bit easier. It shortens senior day, that's for sure. We'd have 3 guys.
Right.
Right? So I can't make all those decisions right now, however.
The 2010 class that they were a part of, there was a bunch of front 7 guys in that class, and a lot of them, with high hopes, and some of them played some really good football for you to have moved on, but you haven't gotten much out of that class this year. A lot of injuries in that class.
A lot of injuries.
I mean, is that just football? Do you just, or one of those things, how do you process that as a coach, that I think out of that whole group, I think you might have got 1 tackle out of them this year?
Are we referring to
Council,
fifth-year seniors or fourth-year seniors?
Fourth-year seniors, the Rabasa, Council, Tuitt, Lynch, that group, Springman.
Yeah. Yeah, I just think it's a cycle, and doing it for as long as I have, I think, you never count on one particular class to be the backbone as much as you count on them to be leaders, you count on them to help, but I don't think it's ever one class. I think classes kind of can set the tone for success by one player being a playmaker or 2 players, but I don't know that it ever stretches across the entire class. I think each one of them has some individual qualities. Going back to the fifth-year class, you've got Austin Collinsworth, who's a captain, and then you go to the 4-year class, and then you've got captains in that class. So I think each one of them kind of adds a different dimension, more so than one class really taking hold and being evaluated as such. That's why it's so important that the consistency in recruiting. If you lose, I think that's why people get so nervous if there's a change in coaches and if there's a lost year in recruiting, or there's a lost couple of years with scholarship reductions. Is that if there's a couple of years there where there's off years in recruiting, it can really hurt you. But I think if you're recruiting well each and every year, you can take pieces out of each class to supplant the other classes.
Last one from me, with Max Redfield, you made a remark about a week and a half ago that you really liked where he was headed, thought his potential was really great. But what do you want to see from him the rest of this year that kind of puts him back on that track where you thought that his future was pretty bright?
Well, he's got a great trait. It's his athleticism, but we've got to, he's got to take that trait and really start to translate it on the field. And that means football knowledge, understanding the game, really taking what he learns in the classroom and applying it to the field. And he wants to do it. He's willing to do it. He's willing to put in the time. I know we had a conversation with Coach Van Gorder yesterday about that specific fact of what else can I do to translate that. And he wants to do it. He knows that there's things that he's got to get better at in terms of recognition and understanding the game and where to be and when to trigger and all of those things. And he's trying to get there. But I mean, I really think you have to look at him as a freshman this year. He played in the bowl game last year, and that's it. He's really a freshman and going through a freshman year.
Brian, as it relates to Sheldon Day, does that precipitate some changes in alignment? Does Rochelle move inside, or does Utupo just enter the starting lineup?
I think it'll be a little bit of both. I think we'll have to shake up a couple of things there and move some guys around. I think we'll have to see if we can make up for a little bit of both.
Play your freshman defensive ends a little bit more, Blankenship maybe?
Yeah. Tusick.
Right, inside.
Yeah, plays a little bit more inside. So I think he gets into the mix. Justin gets into the mix. Blankenship gets into the mix a little bit more. I think that's probably the most realistic scenario right now.
Right, and following up on Eric's question about Redfield, was that kind of an accumulation of play over a couple weeks? I know there was a play at the end of the Arizona State game where he didn't take a hit along the sideline. Do you know what that was about? Because that's kind of unlike him, as physical and aggressive as he is.
Yeah, I think, I think he felt like the guy was going out of bounds, but, just the optics didn't look good, and I think he was criticized and, certainly it affected him. He's got a lot of pride, like most players do, certainly. Max is a kid that we're going to continue to work with, and we got to get him there. And we can't say, oh, he's not our guy. He is our guy, and we got to get him to the level where the game becomes easier for him, and that's what we're working towards.
And in terms of Tranquil, you've used him all season. He's been effective in the box. You had him as more of a safety. The other day, I know it's early, but long-term future with him, what do you see as far as positioning?
Well, we'd like, obviously he's doing a great job for us and playing a position of need right now, but we have a picture of what that safety would look like, and it's a little bit different than what Drew looks like, but he's doing a great job for us at that position right now. We think he's a little bit closer to the ball, but given our situation right now, he's forced into a role that he's doing the best he can with right now.
He's listed at 225. I mean, how high is that upside weight-wise, do you think, in the future?
Well, I think it puts him in a position that he could be considered for, linebacker positions. He could be considered for, safety positions that we, use him closer to the ball. But he's playing off the hash right now, and he's good enough to be the starting safety at Notre Dame off the hash, and that's not bad.
Thanks.
Brian, you mentioned Sunday that there are games you have to outscore the opponent. Is this a game where you got to count more on the offense to carry the load?
Well, I have felt that pretty much all year. But if you put the ball on the ground as much as we have, you start to have to reevaluate the way you go into games because you can't keep saying we're going to outscore you, but have 9 turnovers in the last 2 weeks. So we have to play better all around too. I mean, we can't just say, offensively we're going to, play fast and score points and whatever happens, happens. It's not good enough. We just saw that last week. So I think if you look at it critically, we've got to play better defense. We've got to get off the field. We've got to make some key stops. We've got to get lined up. And we got to hold on to the football. Now, when we say hold on to the football, what does that mean? I mean, clearly we got to make sure that we're giving the ball to the right guys at the right time and doing the things that minimize risk. And so all those things are in the evaluation mode while still knowing at the end of the day, we got to score a lot of points.
Have you ever had a team make as many mistakes as this team has? I mean, it seemed like on all facets of the game, especially against Northwestern, there were just so many mistakes.
We've never been as young as I've been on defense, so that's difficult. And you know, we've never had this much difficulty, you know, holding on the football on offense at the same time. But we're going to get through it, you know. We're not going to blame anybody. We're going to look at how we coach it and get better at it. And we're going to fight through this rough spot. This is a rough spot for us, but it's a time that we'll look to evaluate how we're coaching it, and players need to evaluate what their mental approach is to taking care of the football, and that's how we'll get through it. We'll get through it.
On the play when there was only 10 players on the field, whose job is it to make sure that, I mean, should the players notice it? Should a coach supposed to be counting? Whose responsibility is it?
I think everybody is responsible for that. The player's responsible to know that he's in the game in a package that is pretty consistent, and the coaches need to know in that situation as well. I think that's pretty clear that in that instance that there's culpability on both sides.
Should the player on the field, I don't know what they should. Should a player on the field, hey, look around and say, well, you know, there's only 4 of us back here? Or?
We would have hoped so.
And Louisville has a player leading the team in the nation in interceptions.
Yes.
Is he a guy what does he do that makes him so good? And is he a guy that everyone has to be aware of where he is at all times, or do you not want him focusing on that?
Oh, no, he needs to know where he is. I mean, he does a great job reading eyes. They're very good ball skill kids in the back end, but they're reading eyes. If Everett stares down anybody in his zip code, he's going to go take the ball away. Very good at anticipating throws, jumping routes. They do a very good job. They're underneath guys. Bird just does a great job of it as well. Just really good at it. And, you know, obviously, they've put themselves in great position offensively because they do such a good job defensively, ball hawking in the back end.
And last one for me, you mentioned the other day about being 7 points from 9-1. The team also a couple plays from being 5-5. Is it one of those things where it's they're roughing the center against North Carolina could have changed things? The 4th and 11 touchdown pass by Everett. Is it one of those things where it's a fine line every week, between winning and losing?
Yeah, it's probably been that way for the last 4 years. I think when we went 12-0, we could probably say there was 3 or 4 games, whether it was Pittsburgh or any of the other games that we played during that year, Stanford on the goal line. You know what I mean? I think college football is such that it comes down to a couple of plays, in the fine line. And that's why it's so critical that when you turn the ball over like we do, and when we turn it over, it's critical. I mean, it's catastrophic turnovers. We're turning it over on the 5-yard line, on the goal line. We're throwing it off our kid's helmet. It's bouncing up in the air, and they're returning it. They are absolutely critical turnovers. We're not getting the fumble that ends up in the end zone, and we fall on it. So it's a rough spot that we're going through. There's no question. And but it is a fine line. But you definitely put yourself in those situations like Stanford when you turn the ball over like we did against Stanford. Now the game comes down to that. Or North Carolina, when you turn the ball over, it comes down to that. So we really think that the self-inflicted wounds on offense have been the story of this season so far. Knowing that our defense has been young and that we were going to have to hold on, we've made it really much more difficult than it's had to have been.
Brian, to your left. Following up on that, and you talking about your team kind of fighting through this, being so close to 9-1 and having that ripped away like the team has the last couple weeks, I'm just curious how you feel they are mentally. Are they fragile? Are they strong right now?
No, they understand that there's that they're in some tough times, but relatively speaking, I reminded them of some tough times that were here just a few years ago when we were 4-5 the week of Tulsa. Those are tough times. Those are difficult times. This pales in comparison. You're now in a winning environment, and you've won a lot of football games. Our seniors win on Saturday. That'll be, 18-2 in the last 20 games at home. So, keep it in perspective. And a lot of the things that are going on, you can correct. They're correctable. It's a perspective, but what I reminded them of is the things they can control and the things that I'm going to help them control. And that is, I don't want to create any bad habits. And we're some of our habits right now in terms of the way we're playing on defense and not communicating, playing smart football, and then offensively turning it over. Those are bad habits that we need to break.
I was going to ask about 2010. What happened to that team at the end that sort of galvanized them and allowed them to turn things around the way they did?
Well, we had a lot of other things, as you know, going on. We had a tragic situation that, obviously was a part of what was going on. I think it was resolve. I think it was a determination that everybody made a decision that regardless of the circumstances, they were going to find a way to win. And that's kind of what we talked about. We're going to find a way to win, regardless of whether we have Sheldon Day or Joe Schmidt, whether we have Kavari Russell or Tavares Daniels. It doesn't matter. We're going to find a way to beat Louisville.
You have almost a similar situation. Last year, you were coming off the loss against Pitt, and you had the senior day with Brigham Young, probably very inclement conditions again. When you have the combination of Louisville leading the nation in interceptions and then all the turnovers this year in the past several weeks, do you maybe almost look more to the ground game to help carry you through and maybe protect the defense a little bit?
Well, we ran the ball for 200 yards and ran it 40 times on Saturday. That didn't seem to help much because we fumbled it 3 times. So we're looking for answers. If you got some good ones, I'm all ears. If you guys want to write something down on a piece of paper, slide it to me, I'll take it. We're searching. You know what I mean? But what we're looking for is we're going to run our offense. We want to minimize risk within our offense, knowing full well we need to score points. But we want to make sure that our players understand how crucial it is to take care of the football. I mean, they have to have that mindset. They cannot turn the football over under any circumstances. Now, listen, if I had a crystal ball and I could figure out what it was exactly that we needed to do offensively to score enough points, and that was running it 50 times, I would do it. But that's kind of what we're at right now.
I mean, you mentioned how with Kyle Brenza, some things have gotten into his head a little bit. Do you feel that turnover situation, when it happens each week, you start to almost think about it so much that it almost becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy?
No, we're not going to get into that. I mean, I think you get in the game, and it definitely affects you. Look, it affected me. I went for 2 when I should have kicked the extra point, right? I mean, it affects everybody. I mean, I can't fall into that. I'm not getting paid to make stupid decisions like that. But you fall into that, right? And so I can't let our players fall into that. So that's what we talked about this week. We cannot let that affect the way we play. We got to go play. And we can't let those things affect us. And the best way not to let those things affect you is to take care of the football. If we take care of the football, get lined up on defense, we're gonna be fine this weekend. And that's really what we have to do.
And just regarding the safety, Gerard Holloman again, I mean, it seems almost ridiculous that one player can intercept 13 passes in a season. He's
Right.
1 away from the NCAA record. Usually, like with the corner, it's like don't throw to his side. What is it that you've seen on tape that he makes him, plus he has 16 passes defense, which is
Yeah.
double of anyone. Is he just a natural ball hawk, or?
He is. I mean, he's got great ball skills, but his scheme allows him some freedom now. So he's always in a position to be that extra player roving. it's not like he's man-to-man on the perimeter and just picking the ball every single time it's thrown at him. So, he's usually a drop-down player in a position where he can read the eyes and react. He's usually doubling somebody. He's usually a free player. So he has some freedom to go get the football. So the scheme allows him some freedom, and they do a great job of allowing him that freedom to go get the football.
Thank you.
Brian, up here, can I ask you to reminisce a little bit? Collinsworth, I think, was your first recruit, first commitment after you got this job. Could you sort of go back what you remember about what you saw on tape, why you wanted him, how that kind of unfolded?
Well, certainly a couple of things stood out. One, he was a winner. He came from a winning program, and I wanted to bring in as many guys that were early on that had experience winning and had come from a winning environment. He came from a winning program, was a leader, a captain, carried himself in a manner that I thought would be a great influence. And it's turned out full circle to be that way with him being a captain in his senior year. I thought he was a versatile player, could play both on offense or defense, not knowing really where we were with our roster at the time. We were kind of looking for some utility guys, but some guys that were winners and had great character. That was kind of the profile in recruiting Austin.
I mean, was he a guy that's like right place, right time?
Well, certainly if I wasn't in Cincinnati, I don't think it would have been the right guy, because I would not have been so familiar with him being, just over the bridge in Fort Thomas.
And just curious with Parker, where does he? You've played a lot of great receivers. You've coached some great receivers. How good is he compared to Floyd's or other ones you've gone against here?
Well, he's got the unique quality of range. That Strong from Arizona State has range but not speed, right? He's got range, but he's got the speed of elite receivers. So they're very rare to find. He's got top end speed with that range, and those are so difficult to find. And I think that's what, and great ball skills. He doesn't drop anything. So range, speed, and great ball skills make him a very difficult receiver to defend.
I mean, when you watch him on tape, maybe it's more the defensive side of the ball, obviously, but the way teams are defending him, do you come away thinking, well, I would have done that too, that's just a great play, or?
I think the first thing that I come away with is, what most teams are trying to do is get somebody in zone underneath them and somebody over the top, and trying to get the quarterback out of the progression, get off him, and because if it's man-to-man, he's staying on him all the way through his progression, and at least Greer did. So we'll see what happens. But in zone, you're trying to get the quarterback off the progression, and hopefully that the ball doesn't go to him, because he's going to be difficult to defend.
And just lastly, I know there's a fumble in the second half. Everett also had a big play off sort of read option, keeping it more than maybe he has all season. Is he just sort of growing into that role, or was that just more game plan specific? That's how Northwestern defended it.
No, he's been better with the mechanics. Obviously, it wasn't good enough. The ball was on the ground. He's been working really hard on his mechanics. He has a tendency to shuffle and move his feet up into the line of scrimmage, which causes some tight mesh points. And we felt like he was getting better at it. And on Saturday, he did a pretty good job. He kept his depth away from the mesh, and we felt he was ready for a little bit more of it. And we were right in one instance and wrong in the other.
Is it the mesh point? Is that more complicated than people give it credit for?
Well, it is, because when you're obviously pulling it and you have any kind of disruption there, we're not just running option. We're running so many other things. If that's all you do, then maybe not quite as much of a concern, but when you do so many other things, it needs to be clean.
Brian, to your right, just a couple of defensive personnel questions. Cody Riggs, is he in the same situation going
Yeah.
into this week?
Yeah, he'll get some playing time for us.
And even through these games where the defense has staggered a little bit, it seems Isaac Rochelle, especially this past week, has continued to play well. Just could you talk about his development, and is he a little bit ahead of schedule from where you thought you might have him going into the season?
No, I think he's where we thought he would be. He's a physical player. He's a guy that's, probably a tweener in a sense that he could play inside and outside. His body type is not ever going to be that dynamic edge pass rusher, but he's a great two-gap player. He can hold the edge. He's athletic enough, rangy enough that he can do a lot of really good things. A very, very solid football player for us in many, many respects.
And another sophomore, Cole Luke, seems that he has continued to progress, or at least he continues to make big plays while being pretty sound at the cornerback position.
I would say if there was one player that we would single out on defense that has progressed as maybe some others have leveled off or haven't progressed the way we have wanted him to, it's Cole Luke. He has really outperformed in our eyes in a number of ways.
The ideal example of a guy that wasn't going to get necessarily that much playing time and has benefited from it.
If there's a silver lining, right, through so much turmoil relative to personnel and the loss of Russell, playing Cole Luke and getting him this year really bodes well for us.
Brian, you used the phrase a moment ago to describe the two-point conversion as a stupid decision. I'm just wondering, how many times over the course of a single game or maybe a season in your self-analysis do you say to your, I mean, obviously there's always going to be some regrets, but how many times do you say something like that?
I do it every day. Yeah. Yeah, I do something stupid every day. Join my club. Anything else?
What, was answering that question today's example?
No comment.
Do we have anybody else in here? I know I have to go to the phones for the Chicago guys. Okay.
They've obviously gone back and forth this year with the quarterback, Will Gardner, starting off, then getting hurt, then coming back, getting hurt. Does their offense change much schematically with the more athletic kid as opposed to Gardner that's more of a big arm guy, or is it just sort of just some tweaks here and there?
We've only seen bits and pieces. We haven't seen, a full change. I don't believe that there's going to be a full change from what they do. It's kind of interesting if you look at them, the way they started the season. If you go all the way back to Murray State, they were in spread with Will. Then they came back to who they are with more tight end sets. And then you can imagine with Bonifant, who came from Trinity, who's more of a spread guy, that they would go back, but really haven't seen it. I think they'll stay true to who they are, and Coach Petrino he likes to be in those tight end sets and, likes the Omaha routes and the play action and run the football and, really does a good job of balancing things up. So we expect to see similar, kind of offense from them.
Brian, I'll be quick because I know Mike wants to get to the phones. Pete was asking about Austin Collinsworth, another fifth-year senior. Justin Utupo might not have expected him to get as many snaps as injuries have forced him into. What did you expect when you brought him back?
We expected him to be, first of all, a good leader for us, and he has been. Justin is well respected by his teammates. He's well liked. He has a lot of credibility in our locker room. So we knew what we were getting as a locker room guy. And if that's all we got from him, that would have been enough for him to come back as a fifth-year player. But we were hoping to get a role for him as well. And Brian thought that after the spring that he could perform in a role for us. And that's what it's ended up being. He's found a role for us on the defensive line, and has performed probably and played more snaps than we thought coming into the season.
It seems, Tyler Stockton, for example, you often bring back a guy as a locker room guy with that as the impetus. Is that something you think about when you're looking at the group that you might bring back?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I think if your locker room is right and you've got the right kind of guys in that locker room, it's always going to sustain you. It's going to sustain you in tough times, and it's going to help you when things are going really well to keep them grounded. So I've always felt that that's an important piece of those fifth-year players as well.
Are there any candidates in this year's fourth-year seniors that jump to mind in that kind of role?
Yeah, I think we obviously the first guy, if Joe wasn't playing this much, you'd think Joe Schmidt right out of the gates, right? Obviously, he had an incredible role for us this year. But he's a guy that is certainly one. Matthias Farley is another, just guy that's very well respected by everybody in the locker room.
Thanks.
All righty, let's see if we have any questions from the callers.
We'll go first to J.J. Stankovitz with Comcast Sportsnet Chicago.
Hey, Brian, just wanted to say, what's Cam's response been since the fumble Saturday? I know he came out and he talked to us, and kind of owned up to it on Saturday, but, talking with you, talking with his teammates, what have you observed from him in the last couple days?
Well, I told him personally that I'd do the same thing over again. I'd give him the football. I wouldn't change a thing about that situation. We had been down there in that situation, and you saw us turn the ball over twice. I took Torrin Folston out of the game specifically to put Cam in the game because he's been so valuable in those situations. So I told him, if I had to do it all over again, I'd do it again. He was affected by it, certainly, but he's a competitor, and he can't wait to get back out there.
He's a guy who's only fumbled twice in his career, I believe. I mean, he didn't even fumble when he went through the gauntlet backwards. I mean, is he a guy that you just kind of have to tell him it's almost like an isolated incident with him, and not to take it that hard almost?
No, he's going to take it. I think players need to take it the way they feel it, and I hope they take it hard. Sometimes I wish they would take it harder, and that's what we're trying to talk about with our guys. It's you got to understand how important it is that it's not just about you. It's about the 80,000 people in the stadium. It's about your teammates. It's about everybody in ball security. So no, he took it hard, but he'll bounce back from it.
Thanks, Brian.
Yep.
We'll go next to Chris Pine with Chicago Tribune.
Hey, Coach, going back to Kyle Brinza for a second, how much of getting him back on track is getting him in the right frame of mind, and how much do you worry that one or two little mistakes can snowball into kind of a bigger mental problem?
I think he's good. I think we had a long conversation, and I don't think he had been down this road before, where he had. Again, he's handling all the duties, and upsetting the routine really got to him. It's the first time it's happened to him. I think he learned a great lesson from it, and I really think he's got the strength and the character and the will that not to let this bother him again. So I'm very confident after my conversation that that this is something behind him.
Thank you.
Yep.
And we have no other questions on the phone.
Thank you, guys.